They laughed at you. They mocked your pain, dismissed your dreams, and whispered behind your back that you would never find love. They saw your loneliness as a sign of failure. They called you foolish for believing that true love, real, God-ordained love, was meant for you. They smirked, thinking they had you figured out, convinced that rejection would break you for good. But what they didn't understand is that being broken in the hands of God is never the end. It's the beginning of something extraordinary. Chosen one, listen closely. Every insult they threw at you was a desperate attempt to keep you from realizing the truth. They wanted you to believe their lies, that you were unworthy, that you were too damaged, that no one could ever truly love you. But here's what they couldn't see. Heaven had already written a different ending for your story. While they were laughing, God was preparing. While they were walking away, heaven was aligning everything in your favor. While they were rejecting you, God was setting you apart for something greater than they could ever imagine. And now you're about to step into the fulfillment of what they swore would never happen. Your true love is coming, and this time it's different. This isn't just any relationship. This is a divine connection, one that carries heaven's approval. The love they said didn't exist for you. It's already sealed in the heavens, waiting for its appointed time. The very love they doubted, the one they mocked you for believing in, is on its way. And nothing, not their words, not their doubts, not even their curses, can stop what God has already set in motion. Let me tell you something. Rejection wasn't a curse. It was a blessing in disguise. Every heartbreak you endured was a setup for something greater. Every moment of loneliness was a divine strategy, a season of preparation, a time of refining. The love you're about to receive isn't ordinary. It's sacred. It's been preserved for you, tailored by the hands of God, and destined to leave every doubter speechless. They thought your story ended with their rejection, but they had no idea that heaven was just getting started. And before we go any further, let me take a moment to thank you. Yes, you. Your presence here is not by chance. To those who have supported this divine mission, who have sown into this message through your prayers, encouragement, and super thanks. You are part of something far greater than you realize. Drop 777 in the comments if you feel the shift happening in your spirit. If you know this message is speaking directly to you, hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready, because what you're about to hear is going to change everything. The enemy tried to convince you that love wasn't meant for you. They planted doubt, hoping you'd give up. But let me ask you this. If your love story wasn't powerful, why would they try so hard to convince you otherwise? Why would they work so relentlessly to make you believe you were unlovable? What is it about you that makes the enemy so afraid? Stay with me, chosen one, because by the time we're done, you'll see the full picture. You'll understand why the attacks were so fierce, why the road was so long, and why the waiting was necessary. And most importantly, you'll see why what's coming next will leave your enemies in awe. Let's dive in. God's chosen ones, your true love is coming. God has approved it. They mocked you, but heaven was watching. The road to true love has never been about the approval of others. It has always been about God's divine timing. You have waited, endured, and faced rejection, but what they didn't know is that your story was never in their hands. Every scoff, every eye roll, every dismissive remark, they thought they were breaking you, but heaven was taking note. And now the appointed time is near. They ridiculed your belief in love. They sneered at your faith, calling it foolish, naive, and out of touch with reality. Someone like you? They asked mockingly. What makes you think you're worthy of something so rare and beautiful? Their words were meant to crush you, to strip you of hope, to make you abandon the very thing God planted in your heart. But let me ask you something. Who has the final say? The voices of mockery or the voice of the Almighty? Think of Sarah, the wife of Abraham. She was barren for decades, and even she laughed when God told her she would have a child in her old age. Genesis 18:12. But what did God do? He fulfilled his promise, and Isaac was born. Just like Sarah's doubters were silenced, those who mocked you will soon witness the impossible come to pass. They thought their words had power, but only God's word stands. Have you ever noticed how the world mocks what it cannot understand? They ridiculed Noah for building the ark, Genesis 6:14-22, laughing at the thought of a flood when the skies were still clear. Yet, when the rain began to pour, who was left standing? Those who doubted were swept away, but Noah, the one they mocked, was the one whom God had chosen to preserve. Doesn't that sound familiar? Haven't you too been ridiculed for trusting in what God told you? But just like Noah, you are building something they cannot yet see. You have heard the whispers. You have seen the pity in their eyes, as if your faith was some sort of tragic delusion. They wrote you off as someone who would always be alone, someone who would never experience the kind of love they see in fairy tales. But their laughter was never proof of your failure. It was evidence of their blindness. They failed to see the divine hand orchestrating your story. And yet, I know the weight of those silent questions that have crept into your heart. Why was I treated this way? Did I really deserve such mockery? Was I foolish to believe God had someone for me? If these doubts have lingered, let me remind you of something. The enemy always mocks what he fears. Your unwavering hope was unsettling to those who have already given up. They saw in you a faith they couldn't comprehend, a light they couldn't dim, and that's why they tried so hard to discourage you. They ridiculed your patience because they lacked the courage to wait. They doubted your worth because they never truly understood their own. But while they were laughing, heaven was working. While they dismissed you, God was writing a love story greater than anything they could ever imagine. The very people who scoffed at you will watch in disbelief as God blesses you in ways they thought were impossible. Psalm 23:5 declares, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows." This is what is coming for you. Love that is anointed, love that is overflowing, love that is beyond human understanding. Look at Joseph's life. His own brothers mocked him, sold him into slavery, and thought they had destroyed his destiny. But what they intended for evil, God turned for good. Genesis 50:20. When God lifted Joseph to power in Egypt, the same brothers who betrayed him had to bow before him. The same will happen for you. The very ones who doubted you will witness your elevation. And what about those in the world today who have been underestimated, only to rise beyond every limitation? Consider Thomas Edison, a man who was told by his teachers that he was too stupid to learn anything. Despite their rejection, he went on to invent the light bulb, illuminating the world in a way no one had imagined. Now, imagine if he had believed their words instead of the calling within him. Have you allowed their mockery to define you, or have you trusted that God's plan will outshine every doubt cast upon you? The rejection you faced was never about your worth. It was about God's redirection. Some people were never meant to stay in your story. They were merely the background noise, the testing ground, the fire that refined you like gold. Imagine a potter molding clay. At first, the process looks rough. The clay is pressed, stretched, and reshaped. To the untrained eye, it may look like destruction, but to the master's hand, it is transformation. How many times have you felt like that clay, pressed down, broken, and seemingly shapeless? But what if I told you that every trial was simply God's way of shaping you for something greater? What if every rejection was actually preparation for the love that He has set apart for you? And so, here you are, standing after every trial, stronger than before. The love that God has prepared for you will not only fill your heart, it will serve as undeniable proof that His timing is perfect. The same voices that once belittled you will be silenced, not by revenge, but by the undeniable work of God in your life. True love is coming, and when it does, it will wipe away every lie spoken against you. The love that is destined for you will not be built on human approval, but on a divine foundation. They said it would never happen. They said you were dreaming. But heaven is about to remind them that when God writes a love story, no force on earth can erase it. And so, chosen one, lift your head. Your time has come. The world's rejection holds no power in the face of God's divine orchestration. The love He is bringing into your life is not just a romance, it is a testimony. It will silence the critics, shatter every doubt, and reveal the undeniable truth. You are always worthy, you are always enough, and you are always destined for something extraordinary. Will you choose to believe in what God has promised, or will you allow the doubts of others to steal what has already been written for you? Stay steadfast, because the best is not just coming, it has already been written. They thought rejection would break you, but they never realized that God was using it to redirect you. Every tear you shed, every moment of heartache, and every cruel word they spoke was never the final chapter. You see, when someone rejects you, it's not a declaration of your unworthiness. It's God's way of steering you towards something greater. They thought they had the last word, but heaven was already writing a better one. They walked away and left you in ruins, didn't they? They made sure you felt their absence, as if their rejection was some kind of proof that you weren't enough. They didn't just leave quietly. They left with smugness, as if breaking your heart somehow validated their own importance. And what stung the most wasn't just their departure, but the way they looked at you, as if you were disposable, as if you never truly mattered. You'll never be enough, their actions whispered. You'll never find the love you're searching for. And in the quiet of the night, when the world is still and your thoughts grow loud, those lies replay in your mind. Do you hear them even now? The doubts creeping in like shadows. Maybe they were right. Maybe I am unworthy. Maybe something is wrong with me. But listen to me, chosen one, rejection was never the end. It was the divine redirection of your life. They left you in ruins, but what they never realized is that God is the master rebuilder. Every rejection, every slammed door, every painful goodbye, it was all part of a greater plan. They thought they were crushing you, but God was strengthening you. They thought they were proving you unlovable, but heaven was preparing a love so great that it would erase every painful memory they left behind. This isn't new. Look at the life of Joseph. His own brothers despised him, betrayed him, and sold him into slavery. They wanted him gone, forgotten, erased from their story. But they didn't know that God was redirecting Joseph's path, not to destruction, but to destiny. The very pit they threw him into became the stepping stone to the palace. Genesis 50:20. Isn't that what God is doing for you? The very rejection they thought would destroy you is about to elevate you. And yet, I know what you might be wondering. If rejection is redirection, why does it hurt so much? Because we were never meant to carry the weight of someone else's inability to love us. Their rejection stung because you gave your heart sincerely, you trusted, you hoped, and they dismissed you as if you were nothing. But what if I told you that their rejection wasn't about you? What if I told you that their inability to love you wasn't a reflection of your worth, but of their limitations? Rejection wasn't a punishment, it was protection. God saw what you couldn't. He saw the heartbreak waiting for you down that road. He saw the hidden betrayals, the slow erosion of your peace, the way you would have had to shrink yourself just to be loved by someone incapable of truly seeing you. So, he intervened. What looked like loss was actually deliverance. What felt like abandonment was actually divine alignment. Have you ever driven somewhere only to find that the road is closed? The frustration builds. The detour sign seems like an inconvenience, an obstacle keeping you from where you wanted to go. But what if that detour was protecting you from a road that was about to collapse? What if that closed road was never meant to lead you to your destination in the first place? That's what God's rejection feels like in the moment. Frustrating, painful, confusing. But what if I told you it was never rejection at all? What if it was a divine redirection to something better than you could ever imagine? Consider J.K. Rowling, the world-renowned author of Harry Potter. She was rejected by multiple publishers over and over again. They saw no potential in her work, no value in her words. But what happened in the end? The very thing they dismissed became one of the most successful book series in history. If she had believed their rejection, she would have never seen the fulfillment of her destiny. Now ask yourself, how many blessings are waiting for you just beyond this moment of pain? The people who walked away from you weren't equipped to handle the magnitude of who you are becoming. Their rejection doesn't define your value, it reveals theirs. You were never meant to shrink yourself to fit into their small view of the world. Their leaving was God's way of removing distractions, of clearing your life of anything that might block the love He has prepared for you. You weren't discarded, you were set apart. And here's the truth that will silence every lie they told you. The love that is coming will restore everything they tried to take from you. God doesn't just repair, He redeems. He takes the places where you were torn down and builds them into monuments of His glory. The very love they said you'd never find is the love that's on its way to you now. It's not just a human love. It's a divine appointment. It's a love that will make you look back on every rejection and thank God for closing the doors that weren't meant for you. What if they had stayed? What if they had never left? These questions haunt us sometimes, but let me tell you something. If they were meant to stay, they would have. If they were meant to be part of your destiny, nothing would have separated them from you. God removes what is not aligned with His plan, and He does it out of love. The tears you cried weren't wasted. The sleepless nights weren't unnoticed. The pain you endured wasn't in vain. Chosen one, the rejection you endured was never meant to define you. It was meant to refine you. You are stronger now because of it. You've learned who you are, and more importantly, whose you are. You belong to God, and His plans for you are unstoppable. The people who rejected you thought they were breaking you, but they were only propelling you toward your destiny. What they left in ruins, God is turning into glory. What they discarded, God is making whole. And the love they said you'd never find, it's already approved by heaven and on its way. Rejection isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a better one. So, tell me, will you let their rejection break you, or will you trust that God is leading you into something far greater? Stay with me, chosen one. The next chapter is about to unfold, and it's going to prove every doubter wrong. They thought you were nothing, but heaven always knew you were priceless. The world may have discarded you, treating you like something replaceable, something to be used and thrown away. They saw you as convenient when it suited them and disposable when it didn't. They never valued your heart, your dreams, or your love. And maybe the hardest part wasn't just their rejection, it was their indifference. They walked away without looking back, as if you never mattered, as if everything you gave was meaningless. And that kind of treatment leaves scars, doesn't it? It plants seeds of doubt deep in your soul. Am I really worthless? Is there something about me that makes me easy to leave? You may not have spoken these questions out loud, but they echoed in your mind in the silence of the night, lingering like shadows trying to suffocate the light of hope. But chosen one, hear me now. Those are lies, every one of them. Their blindness to your worth does not mean you were ever without value. Their failure to see you does not mean you were unseen. They didn't recognize your worth because they weren't capable of understanding it. Think about Jesus, the very Son of God, walking among men, healing the sick, raising the dead. And yet, he was rejected. He was mocked, beaten, and crucified by the very people he came to save. The world didn't recognize his value, but did that change who he was? Number. And it doesn't change who you are either. The world may have cast you aside, but heaven has always known your name. Let me ask you, have you ever heard of a diamond being thrown away just because someone didn't recognize it? Of course not. A diamond doesn't lose its worth just because it's covered in dirt. And neither do you. They may have seen you as broken, as nothing more than a shattered piece of pottery, but let me remind you of something powerful. In Japan, there is an ancient art called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold, making the cracks and flaws part of the design. The result? The piece becomes even more valuable than it was before it was broken. Isn't that exactly what God does? What they broke, he is restoring. What they rejected, he is transforming into something so radiant that even your enemies will have to stop and take notice. They thought they threw away something worthless, but God has been crafting you into a masterpiece. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery, believing they had disposed of him for good. But what did God do? He took the one they discarded and made him second in command over Egypt. Genesis 50:20. The very people who betrayed him had to bow before him in the end. Do you see the pattern? The world may throw you away, but God always has the final say. And yet, I know the pain still lingers. Why didn't they see me? Why wasn't I enough for them? But here's the real question. Why are you trying to fit into a place that was never meant to hold you? God didn't allow them to see your worth because he had something better planned. He had to remove the ones who were never meant to cherish you to make room for the ones who will. Consider the story of Van Gogh, one of the most celebrated artists in history. During his lifetime, people dismissed him. They saw no value in his work, no beauty in his vision. He died without knowing the impact his art would one day have. But today, his paintings are priceless. The world failed to recognize his worth while he was alive, but that didn't mean his talent was never there. Could it be that the same is happening to you? That the ones who overlooked you were simply never meant to see your brilliance? Chosen one, the way they treated you was never a reflection of who you are. It was a reflection of who they are. Their inability to recognize you does not diminish your worth. Their rejection does not define your destiny. And now, God is about to prove them wrong. The love that is coming into your life won't just see your worth, it will cherish it. This is not just any love. This is a love designed by heaven itself. The person God is sending won't take you for granted. They won't treat you as an afterthought. They will see you through the eyes of heaven, and they will love you in the way God always intended. And when that moment comes, every lie they spoke over you will crumble into dust. Every doubt that ever whispered in your mind will be drowned out by the overwhelming truth of who you are. A treasure chosen by God, precious beyond measure. So let them think they won. Let them believe they were right to walk away. Because when God reveals what he's been preparing for you, they will realize too late that they didn't discard trash. They abandoned a treasure. And that treasure, it's about to shine so brightly that it blinds them. Stay with me, chosen one. Your moment is coming. They laughed at you, didn't they? Every time you held on to hope, every time you refused to settle, they smirked as if they knew better. They called you a fool for waiting, for believing that love, true, deep, God-ordained love, was worth the wait. What kind of person waits for love in this world? They mocked. "Why don't you just give up and move on?" they sneered. To them, patience was foolish. Faith was naive. Your refusal to compromise was nothing more than wishful thinking. They rolled their eyes at your conviction, at your belief that God's plan was greater than any shortcut the world had to offer. They pitied you, as if your faith in divine timing was some tragic delusion. But here's the truth they couldn't see. The real fool wasn't you. It was them. Because while they were busy chasing fleeting relationships and hollow connections, you were being prepared for something far greater. While they settled for what was easy, you chose to trust what was eternal. And now, the very thing they ridiculed, your patience, your faith, your belief in divine timing, is about to become your greatest victory. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness in God's sight. 1 Corinthians 3:19. The world boasts of its wisdom, thinking it has all the answers. They thought they were clever, so sure that their logic was superior, but their arrogance was blind. What they failed to understand is that God's wisdom turns the wisdom of the world into folly. The ones who mocked you, the ones who dismissed your faith, will soon realize that the joke was on them all along. Think about Noah. God told him to build an ark, and the world laughed. They ridiculed him, called him insane, because they couldn't see what he saw. But when the flood came, who was standing? Genesis 6:14-22. They thought Noah was a fool until they realized he had outsmarted them all by trusting in God's plan. Isn't that exactly what's happening in your life? They laughed at your patience, at your faith, at your refusal to settle. But now, God is about to prove that waiting on Him is never in vain. How often does the world glorify quick fixes and shortcuts? They tell you that waiting is pointless, that faith is outdated, that you should take what you can get before it's too late. They called you foolish because you didn't play by their rules. But tell me, who said you were ever meant to follow their path? You were always set apart. They couldn't understand that your patience wasn't passive, it was preparation. Every moment you waited was a moment God was working behind the scenes. Every time you chose faith over fear, heaven took note. And now, your trust in God is about to bear fruit in a way that will silence every doubter. Look at the story of Sarah and Abraham. God promised them a child, but decades passed with no sign of it. They could have given up. They could have listened to the voices saying it was impossible. But in the end, God fulfilled His promise, and Isaac was born. Genesis 21:1-3. Sarah's waiting wasn't foolish, it was the path to a miracle. And now, chosen one, your own miracle is unfolding. The love that is coming into your life is not just another relationship, it is a divine promise. It is the kind of love that will leave your enemies stunned and speechless, the very people who said it would never happen, who dismissed your faith as nonsense, will be forced to watch as God's plan for you unfolds before their eyes. Imagine the moment they realize they underestimated you, the moment they see that the one they called a fool was actually the one walking in divine wisdom. Your patience wasn't wasted, it was divinely orchestrated. It was the key that unlocked this very moment. And now, God is building something unshakable on the foundation of your faith. This is your testimony. This is the proof that waiting on God is never a mistake. So let them keep their arrogance. Let them cling to their shallow wisdom, because your faith has already outsmarted them all. Stay with me, chosen one. The best is yet to come. The very ruins they thought would bury you have become the stage where God's miracles are coming to life. Look back for a moment, chosen one. Do you remember the wreckage they left you in? The words they spoke cut deep. Rejection pierced your soul, and betrayal left you gasping for air. They left you in pieces, abandoned in ruins, and walked away without a second thought. In their eyes you were nothing more than a passing memory, a defeated soul, a joke they once knew. They assumed you would never rise again. But what they failed to understand is that the very ruins they left behind became sacred ground for a miracle. The place where they thought your story ended became the altar where God began his greatest work. Think of Job. He lost everything: his wealth, his children, his health. His so-called friends mocked him, believing he had been forsaken by God. Even his wife urged him to curse God and die. Job 2:9. But what they didn't realize was that Job's suffering was not his end. It was his setup for restoration. In the end, God gave him twice as much as he had before. Job 42:10. Does this sound familiar? Haven't you too been left in the rubble, only for God to build something even greater from the ashes? Every tear you cried, every shattered piece of your heart, and every broken dream, God has used them as raw materials for something extraordinary. They thought they had destroyed you, but in God's hands, those ruins have become the foundation of a masterpiece. What if your greatest heartbreak was never meant to be your burial, but the soil where your spirit would begin to grow? You see, the enemy wanted those ruins to be your prison, but God transformed them into a platform. They thought their betrayal and abandonment would silence you, but God has turned that chaos into order, into beauty, into glory. What was meant to destroy you has now become the very thing God is using to elevate you. Do you see it now? The places where you were torn apart are the very places where God is building you up. They saw rubble, but God saw restoration. They saw devastation, but God saw destiny. And now you stand stronger, brighter, and more resilient than ever. The ones who walked away didn't just leave you in ruins. They left you in the hands of the master builder. And trust me, no one creates something magnificent like God does. Consider Nelson Mandela, a man who was unjustly imprisoned for 27 years. His enemies thought they had buried him, silenced him, and erased his influence. But what they didn't know was that his time in captivity was molding him into a leader who would change history. When he emerged from prison, he did not return with bitterness. He returned with power. The very suffering meant to break him only strengthened him, leading him to become the president of South Africa and a global symbol of peace. What if the very trials meant to crush you are actually preparing you for a destiny beyond what you can imagine? So let them stare in disbelief when they see what God has done in your life. Let them wonder how someone they thought was broken beyond repair could shine so brightly. They will never understand that the rejection and heartbreak they caused were merely tools in the hands of God, shaping you into who you were always meant to be. The enemy's plans to break you were never a match for God's plans to bless you. Your broken heart, that was the altar where God created something new, something extraordinary. Your tears, they watered the seeds of greatness that are now growing into a harvest so abundant it will leave your enemies speechless. The ruins they thought would crush you have become your revival. The pain they caused has become your power, and the love they said you would never find, it's on its way, greater, deeper, and more divine than anything you ever imagined. Chosen one, listen to me. What they left behind was never your end. It was the beginning of a testimony that will inspire generations. The wounds they inflicted have become the foundation of your greatest victory. You're not defined by the ruins they created. You're defined by the revival God has brought to life in you. So, keep walking, keep trusting. The ruins are behind you, and your destiny is ahead. God is turning every broken piece into a glorious masterpiece, and soon the love and joy He is sending your way will complete the story. This is your revival, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop what God is building in you. Stay with me, chosen one, because the best is still to come. They laughed, but you'll have the last word. Let them mock, let them sneer, let them roll their eyes, because every ounce of their doubt is only adding to the weight of God's coming glory. They think they know how your story will end, but what they don't realize is that the author of your life has already written the final chapter. And when your love story unfolds, their laughter will turn into silence, and their doubt will transform into envy. They laughed, didn't they? Oh, how they laughed. They mocked your faith, dismissed your dreams, and scoffed at your unshakable hope. In their eyes, you were nothing more than a dreamer, someone foolish enough to believe in something they swore would never come to pass. They sneered when you spoke of true love. They rolled their eyes when you mentioned God's perfect timing. They smirked as if they had all the answers. Keep dreaming, they said. It's never going to happen. You'll be waiting forever. Their words stung, didn't they? The weight of their mockery pressed against your heart, testing your faith. But let me ask you something. Who gets the final say? The voices of doubters or the voice of the Almighty? Think about Hannah, the mother of the prophet Samuel. She was barren for years, while Peninnah, her husband's other wife, taunted her relentlessly. Peninnah mocked Hannah's prayers, ridiculed her suffering, and took pleasure in making her feel unworthy. 1 Samuel 1:6-7. But Hannah refused to let the laughter of her enemies steal her faith. She cried out to God, and in his perfect timing she gave birth to Samuel, a prophet who would anoint kings. The same people who mocked her had to watch as God elevated her. Do you see the parallel? Just like Hannah, your faithfulness in the waiting is setting the stage for a miracle that will silence every voice that ever laughed at you. They mocked you because they couldn't see what heaven was doing. To them, your waiting looked like wasting. To God, it was preparation. To them, your faith seemed foolish. To heaven, it was proof of your strength. They thought their laughter would break you, but chosen one, the power of God's promise is greater than the noise of their mockery. And when your love story unfolds, when the divine plan finally comes to light, they'll realize they weren't laughing at you. They were laughing at a masterpiece in the making. They just couldn't see it yet. You see, the enemy thrives on mocking what he fears most. That's why their sneers came with such bitterness. They ridiculed you because they didn't understand you. People fear what they cannot comprehend, and chosen one, the depth of your faith and the favor of God on your life were too much for them to grasp. So they did the only thing they knew how to do. They laughed. But what they didn't understand is this: God always has the last laugh. Your love story will be a testimony so powerful, it will make your enemies question everything they ever believed. The very people who said you were foolish for waiting, for hoping, for trusting, will look at you in awe and wonder how they ever doubted you. The love that God is preparing for you isn't just an answer to your prayers, it's a statement to the world. It will prove that God's timing is perfect, that his promises are true, and that no human opinion can stop what he has ordained. Consider Walt Disney. Before creating his empire, he was fired from a newspaper for supposedly lacking imagination. Can you imagine that? The man who would go on to create entire worlds of magic was once dismissed as uncreative. They laughed at him, but today his legacy speaks for itself. What if the laughter you've endured is just proof that something extraordinary is coming? What if every word spoken against you is only setting the stage for your undeniable rise? So let them laugh. Let their mockery fill the air, because it's only temporary. What God is about to do in your life will not just silence their laughter. It will transform it into regret. Regret that they ever doubted you. Regret that they couldn't see the divine light in you. Regret that they underestimated the power of the one who chose you. Chosen one, you don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to argue, explain, or prove your worth to anyone. God himself will vindicate you, and when your love story unfolds, it will be clear to everyone watching that this wasn't your doing, it was his. And that kind of victory, it speaks louder than words ever could. So let them laugh now. let them roll their eyes and shake their heads, because when the time comes, and it is coming soon, their laughter will stop, their disbelief will turn to awe, their sneers will be silenced by the undeniable evidence of God's glory in your life. God always has the final word. And chosen one, His word over your life is victory. Your love story is being written by the Creator of the universe, and no amount of laughter or mockery can erase it. They laughed, but you'll rise. They doubted, but you'll shine. And in the end, they'll see what heaven has known all along. You were chosen, and God always delivers on His promises. Stay steadfast, because your testimony is about to unfold. The best is still to come. Your pain was the price for purpose. Every tear was a seed, every heartbreak a lesson. Chosen one, let's not sugarcoat it. The pain you endured was real. It wasn't just a passing ache or a fleeting wound. It was agony that gripped your heart, left you breathless, and made you wonder if you would ever feel whole again. You cried out in the stillness, didn't you? Why me, God? Why do I have to feel this much, break this often, lose this deeply? The world told you to shake it off, to move on, to stop being so sensitive. But what they failed to see is that your pain was never pointless. It was the price for purpose. Every tear you shed was a seed planted in the soil of your destiny. Every heartbreak, every rejection, every moment of betrayal or abandonment, it was all part of a greater plan. They thought they were breaking you, but God was using those very moments to build something within you that no one could take away. Can you see it now? The enemy wanted your pain to destroy you, but God used it to prepare you. Your tears were never wasted. They watered the garden of your purpose. Let's be honest, there were moments when it felt like too much, like the weight of it all might crush you. You questioned if God even saw your struggle, if He heard your prayers, if He cared about the love you longed for. But what you didn't know then, and what I'm here to tell you now, is that God was never absent in your pain. He was there, collecting every tear, turning every heartbreak into wisdom, and molding every shattered piece of your heart into a vessel strong enough to carry the love He is about to send your way. Think about Joseph. His own brothers betrayed him, selling him into slavery. He was thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit. Years passed, and it must have felt like God had forgotten him. But every moment of suffering was shaping him into the man who would one day stand second in command over all of Egypt. Genesis 41:41-43. When Joseph finally saw God's plan unfold, he didn't look back at his pain with bitterness. He looked back with understanding. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50:20. Isn't it the same for you? The pain that once felt unbearable will soon become the very reason you rise. The suffering that once felt endless will soon make perfect sense. God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't let you walk through the fire for nothing. He allows it to refine you, to burn away doubts and fears that would have held you back from stepping into your destiny. That ache you felt, it was teaching you patience, perseverance, and faith. That heartbreak, it was showing you how to recognize what is real and what is counterfeit. You prayed for love, but the love God has prepared for you couldn't come until you became the person strong enough to receive it. And now, here you are, stronger, wiser, radiant. Imagine a sculptor standing before a block of marble. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing but a cold, lifeless stone. But in the hands of the master, every strike of the chisel reveals something breathtaking. Have you ever thought that maybe the pain you endured was simply God carving away what was never meant to stay? Even in today's world, we see this truth. Consider Elon Musk, one of the most influential entrepreneurs of this generation. Before reaching success, he faced crushing failures. His first company was taken from him. His rockets at SpaceX kept exploding, and Tesla nearly went bankrupt. He was ridiculed, told he was dreaming too big, and faced public humiliation when his projects failed. But instead of quitting, he kept going. Now, he leads multiple billion-dollar companies, revolutionizing technology and space exploration. What if the same is true for you? What if every trial was actually positioning you for a future beyond what you can imagine? Chosen one, the love story God is preparing for you will make every tear, every lonely night, every heartbreak worth it. When it comes, it will be a love so pure, so divinely orchestrated, that you will look back and say, "Now I understand. Now I see why it had to be this way." Your pain wasn't wasted. It was an investment in the masterpiece God is unveiling. Remember this, your pain had a purpose, and that purpose is your elevation. God is not just giving you a love story, He is giving you a testimony that will inspire others. So keep walking, chosen one. You are on the brink of something extraordinary. God's approval carries more weight than any rejection you have ever faced. When heaven has stamped approved on your love story, no amount of human denial, doubt, or disbelief can stand against what has been divinely set in motion. Do you realize that the people who walked away, the ones who dismissed your worth and doubted your dreams, never had any real power over your destiny? Their rejection was never a true obstacle. It was simply a redirection. Heaven's yes had already been spoken over your life long before their no. So why let their opinions hold any space in your heart when God's will for you remains unshakable? Look at Joseph's story. His own brothers betrayed him, selling him into slavery, hoping to erase his future. But what they meant for harm, God used for good. Genesis 50:20. While they rejected him, heaven was positioning him for greatness. Can you imagine what would have happened if Joseph had allowed their betrayal to define him? Instead, he trusted that God's plan was greater, and in the end, he rose to a position of power, fulfilling the very destiny his brothers tried to steal. Could it be that your rejection was actually a setup for something greater? When God's chosen ones step into the love story He has written for them, those who once mocked or overlooked them will be left in disbelief. How can someone they doubted and underestimated now walk in such an extraordinary blessing? But this is the mystery of divine favor. It defies human understanding. As Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." The love coming your way is not something you had to chase after or beg for. It is not the result of human effort, but a divine orchestration that has been unfolding long before your heartbreaks and disappointments. Consider Ruth. She lost everything: her husband, her home, her security. Yet she remained faithful. Did she know that her steps were leading her straight into the arms of the man God had chosen for her? Boaz, a man of integrity and honor, recognized her worth immediately. Their love story wasn't built on striving, manipulation, or luck. It was sealed by God Himself. Do you believe that your love story is already sealed in heaven? That even the heartbreaks you endured were never signs of failure, but rather stepping stones towards something far greater? Now, let this truth take root in your heart. The same God who placed the stars in the sky, who commands the oceans and holds the universe in His hands, has looked at your love story and declared, "It is good." His approval is final. What He has ordained, no rejection can cancel. What He has blessed, no enemy can destroy. What He has sealed, no force on earth or in hell can unseal. So why hold on to the pain of rejection when heaven's approval is the only validation you need? When you finally walk into the love that God has prepared for you, will you still remember the voices that once told you it was impossible? Or will you look back and realize that every closed door was actually God's protection, leading you to His perfect yes? Lift your head high, chosen one. Your love story is not just coming. It has already been written, and it is divinely guaranteed. The enemy's lies are crumbling, and the truth is rising. Can you feel it? For so long, the enemy whispered falsehoods into your mind, trying to make you believe that you were unworthy, unlovable, and destined to walk alone. But let's call it what it is: deception. Every lie he planted was a strategic attack designed to break your spirit and separate you from the truth of who you really are. Have you ever wondered why these lies were so persistent? It's because the enemy saw something in you that you hadn't yet seen in yourself: the light of God's favor, the power of your calling, and the love story that was already written in heaven with your name on it. Think about how the enemy operates. His greatest weapon has always been deception. From the very beginning, he twisted the truth in the Garden of Eden, convincing Eve to doubt what God had spoken. Genesis 3:1-5. He did the same to you, whispering in your quiet moments, making you question your worth. He told you that love wasn't meant for you, that no one would ever choose you, and that your very existence was a burden rather than a blessing. But do you see the pattern? His lies were never about you. They were about his fear. He was terrified of what would happen if you ever discovered the truth of who you are in Christ. And now that truth is being revealed. Every falsehood is being exposed. You were never unworthy. You were never forgotten. You were never meant to walk alone. God's eyes have been on you every step of the way, guiding you, preparing you, and loving you with an unshakable love. The enemy wanted to keep you trapped in fear because he saw what you could not yet see, that your love story had already been approved, already written, and already sealed by heaven. Consider the story of Hannah. She was barren, mocked, and made to feel like she was less than others because she had not yet received what her heart longed for. But what others did not know was that God was preparing something greater. He was not ignoring her. He was setting her apart for a blessing that would silence every mocker. And when the time was right, she received her promise. 1 Samuel 1:19-20. In the same way, the love that God has prepared for you is not delayed. It is being divinely orchestrated for the right moment. Do you believe that every tear, every heartbreak, and every moment of loneliness was not in vain? The lies are falling apart now. The enemy told you no one could love you, but God says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139:14. The enemy tried to convince you that you'd always be alone. But God has been working behind the scenes, preparing a divine connection that will not only heal your heart, but elevate your spirit. The enemy said you were forgotten, but heaven's angels have been tirelessly moving pieces into place to fulfill God's promise to you. Can you see it now? Every rejection, every lonely night, and every tear you cried was not a sign of abandonment, but a sign that God was leading you towards something greater. Now, take a moment to let this truth sink in. The love that is coming into your life will be undeniable proof that the enemy's whispers were nothing but fear masquerading as fact. Every doubt he planted will wither under the light of God's truth. Every time the enemy said, "You will never find love," heaven was already smiling, knowing that your love story was in progress. The enemy underestimated the power of God's plan for your life, and now you are stepping into the fullness of his promises. So let go of the lies. They hold no power here. Trust in the truth of who you are and the love that God has prepared for you. The enemy thought he could break you, but he was wrong. He did not account for the power of God's truth, the resilience of your spirit, or the divine favor that has always been upon your life. You are chosen, you are deeply loved, you are victorious, and nothing, no rejection, no past heartbreak, no lie from the enemy can change that. Your love story is not only coming, it is divinely guaranteed. The waiting was never wasted, it was warfare. Every moment you endured, every temptation you resisted, every silent prayer you whispered in faith was not an act of passivity, but of power. The enemy never wanted you to realize that your patience was not a delay. It was a weapon forged in spiritual battle. Can you see it now? The times you refused to settle, the moments when doubt crept in but you stood firm, the nights you wept yet still believed, those were victories in disguise. The world may have mocked you. They may have called you foolish for holding on to a promise they couldn't see. But did Noah look foolish when he built the ark while the sky was clear? The people laughed, ridiculed, and dismissed him. But in the end it was Noah who stood secure while the flood overtook the doubters. Genesis 6:14-22. And just like Noah, your faith in the unseen has been your shield, your defense, your weapon against every scheme designed to make you quit. The enemy assumed your waiting would break you, that the silence, the loneliness, and the seemingly unanswered prayers would wear you down. He thought you would grow weary and surrender to compromise, settling for less than what God promised. But what the enemy did not understand is that patience in God is not weakness. It is the ultimate strength. Every time you resisted the urge to take matters into your own hands, every time you chose faith over fear, you were disarming the enemy's attacks. Can you imagine how frustrated the enemy must have been watching you remain steadfast when everything in the natural told you to give up? Consider the story of Sarah and Abraham. They were promised a child, yet they waited decades without seeing the fulfillment of that promise. At one point, impatience led Sarah to take matters into her own hands. But God's plan had never changed. When the time was right, despite all odds, Isaac was born as the child of promise, Genesis 21:1-3. What if Abraham and Sarah had given up completely? What if you had given up? Could it be that your waiting was never just about the blessing, but about the transformation happening within you? Let's be honest, waiting is hard. There were moments when the weight of it all felt unbearable, when the longing pressed so heavily on your heart that you questioned if it was all in vain. But even in those darkest moments, when the enemy whispered, "Just give up," you held on. You refused to surrender your faith, and that choice, again and again, became your greatest weapon. Every second you endured, you proved that your trust in God was stronger than the enemy's lies. Here's the truth. Waiting is not passive. It is not wasted time spent wishing and hoping. It is active alignment with God's divine timing. It is choosing to stay on His path even when it feels slower than you expected. It is trusting that He is moving behind the scenes, weaving together a story so breathtaking that only His hands could craft it. And while you waited, God was not just preparing the blessing, He was preparing you. The enemy underestimated the power of patience, but heaven never did. Every moment of waiting has built something unshakable within you, something that will make you unstoppable when the promise finally arrives. And now, chosen one, the wait is over. The season of patience is shifting into a season of fulfillment. The love you prayed for, the joy you longed for, the promises you clung to, they are here. Can you feel it? What the enemy thought would break you has only refined you. What the world called foolish, heaven calls faith. And now, the reward of your unwavering trust is stepping into your life, divinely orchestrated and sealed with God's approval. This love, this blessing, this victory, it was never just about you. It is a testimony, a living declaration that waiting on God is never in vain. It is proof that faith, even in the quiet, moves mountains. So hold your head high, chosen one. The weight of waiting was your weapon, and now it is your testimony. You didn't just survive the waiting, you thrived through it. And now you are stepping into the promise that was always meant for you. Their words can't stop what's coming. Every cruel remark, every whispered insult, every dismissive laugh, they hold no power over the destiny God has declared for you. Do you remember the times they mocked you, called your dreams unrealistic, and scoffed at your faith. They spoke as if they had the final say, as if their opinions could dictate your future. But they failed to understand one undeniable truth. Human words have no authority over what God has already spoken into existence. Consider the story of David. When he stepped onto the battlefield to face Goliath, his own brothers mocked him, accusing him of arrogance. 1 Samuel 17:28. The giant taunted him, declaring that he was nothing but a boy, incapable of victory. But what happened? David didn't let their words define him. He stood on the promises of God, and with a single stone, he defeated the giant that everyone else feared. Can you see the parallel in your own life? The words of others may have tried to convince you that you were unworthy, that your dreams were too big, or that your faith was foolish. But just like David, you are armed with something far greater, God's promise. While they were busy tearing you down, heaven was lifting you up. Every negative word they spoke over your life was met with God's divine protection. Every time they said, "It will never happen," heaven responded with, "It is already done." Their words were mere noise, but God's word is unshakable. As it is written in Isaiah 55:11, "So shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me void, but it shall accomplish what I please." The love, the blessings, the season of joy that God has prepared for you are already written into your destiny, and nothing they say can erase it. The enemy loves to use words as weapons. Have you ever found yourself replaying their insults in your mind, allowing them to plant seeds of doubt? That is his strategy. He wants you to believe that their opinions carry weight, that their rejection defines your worth. But what if you stopped letting their words take root? What if you replaced their doubts with the truth of what God has spoken over your life? When Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, Satan used words, twisting scripture, trying to shake his identity. Matthew 4:1-11. But Jesus countered every attack with the truth of God's word. And so must you. Let them talk. Let them say whatever they want. It won't stop what's coming. In fact, their negativity will only make your victory that much sweeter. Think about Joseph. His brothers mocked him, threw him into a pit, and sold him into slavery, believing they had buried his destiny. But the very thing they meant to destroy him became the stepping stone to his promotion. One day, those same brothers had to stand before Joseph as he ruled over Egypt, witnessing the very fulfillment of the dreams they once tried to silence. Genesis 45:4-5. Can you picture the moment when God's promise for your life is fulfilled? The very people who doubted you will be left speechless. The ones who said you would never experience love, never walk in blessings, never step into your destiny, they will be forced to watch as you thrive. Because the truth is, they were never the authors of your story. God is, and his script doesn't include their lies. So lift your head high. You don't need to defend yourself against their words, because God is your defender. As he declares in Isaiah 54:17, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." What's coming is so magnificent, so divine, that it will speak for itself. And chosen one, the time is coming when they'll have no choice but to watch as you walk boldly into everything they swore was impossible. The only words that will matter then are the ones heaven already declared. Approved, blessed, destined. The divine union that will silence the doubters is unfolding before your eyes. This love, the one you have prayed for, dreamed of, and waited so patiently to receive, is not just another relationship. It is a masterpiece crafted by the very hands of the Creator. Can you feel it? The moment you've been preparing for, the love that heaven has ordained, is finally here. And it is not ordinary. It is not fleeting. It is eternal, unshakable, and so profoundly beautiful that it will leave those who doubted you utterly speechless. They said it wasn't possible. They scoffed at your faith, called your patience foolish and dismissed your standards as unrealistic. How many times did they try to convince you that you were wasting your time, that you would never find the love you believed God had promised you? But what they never understood is that this was never just your dream. It was God's promise. And when God makes a promise, He fulfills it in His perfect time. Every whispered doubt, every mocking laugh, and every "you'll never have that" will now be silenced in the face of the love that is entering your life. Look at Abraham and Sarah. They were told they would have a child in their old age, yet doubt and time made it seem impossible. Genesis 18:11-14. Even Sarah laughed at the thought. But God's promises are not bound by human logic or limitations. Isaac was born, proving that God's word never fails. And just as He fulfilled His promise to them, He is fulfilling His promise to you. This love isn't just a personal blessing. It is a testament to God's faithfulness. It is proof that His timing is perfect, that His plans are flawless, and that no human rejection or earthly obstacle can interfere with what He has ordained. Do you see now why you had to wait? Why every disappointment was actually divine redirection? This love isn't here simply to make you happy. It is here to complete the work that God has been doing in you all along. Every tear you cried, every lonely night, every heartfelt prayer, they were never in vain. Heaven heard you, and now the answer has arrived. And this love, it is far bigger than your own healing and joy. It is a reflection of God's grace, a divine testimony that will inspire others. The world is watching, and as they witness this union, they will see the undeniable hand of God. The skeptics, the ones who thought your faith was misplaced, will have no choice but to acknowledge that this love could only have come from heaven. But this love will do something even greater. It will inspire. Your story will ignite hope in those who have stopped believing, those who have been crushed by rejection and weighed down by waiting. Your testimony will be a reminder that God's love is real, His promises are true, and His timing is always worth trusting. So hear this, chosen one, your time has come. The love stepping into your life now is not just the fulfillment of your waiting. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with joy, purpose, and divine fulfillment. And when this love is revealed, it will leave the world in awe and the doubters in silence. Can you imagine the look on their faces when they realize that everything they said was impossible has now come to pass? Let them watch. Let the skeptics wonder. Let the world stand in awe, because what God has brought together, no one can tear apart. Mark 10:9. This is your divine union, and it is glorious. What they thought would break you has only built you stronger. Every tear, every rejection, every moment of waiting was not a punishment. It was preparation for this triumph. Your true love is not just a gift. It is living proof of God's faithfulness and divine favor over your life. This love is a testament to His promises, a reflection of His glory, and a reward for your unwavering trust. So step into this season boldly, chosen one, because your true love is here. God has approved it, heaven has sealed it, and nothing on earth or in hell can stop it. As we come to the end of today's message, take a moment to truly reflect on the powerful truth that God has already approved your true love. This is not just a wish or a dream. It's a divine plan set in motion, designed perfectly by our Heavenly Father. The waiting and the longing you felt have all been part of God's beautiful timing, and now He is aligning everything to bring that love into your life. What God has approved, no one can take away. This is the season of His favor, and your true love is closer than you realize. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being part of this amazing community. If this message has touched you today, I invite you to support our channel through Super Thanks. Your generosity helps us continue sharing these messages of hope and faith. Whether you choose to donate or not, Your presence, likes, comments and shares are incredibly valuable to us. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we're grateful for the encouragement and love you bring to this space. May God continue to bless you abundantly. May His peace fill your heart, His love surround you, and His guidance lead you on every step of your journey. Remember, your true love is coming, and it's approved by God. His plans for you are greater than anything you could imagine. Stay in faith and trust that your time is coming. Thank you once again for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share, and may God bless you richly today and always.